So I have been teaching body dialogues since 1979. Body dialogue is a practice of present moment awareness, but in the body, not just in the mind. It's based in learning how your breathing shows up to create these patterns of restriction and mobility. So it synthesizes Alexander technique, yoga, Tai Chi, physical therapy, and Jungian psychology. When I first trained in the Alexander technique, which was my primary training that body dialogues grew out of, I was attracted to Alexander because I was a dancer. And as a dancer, I had a lot of really poor movement habits that were creating a lot of stress in my body. So I created this modality that I'm calling body dialogues because what I recognized is that the whole process of understanding your movement patterns and your breathing patterns comes from the dialogue you're having in your mind-body. And I don't see them as separate, so I can't even use them as two words. To me, they're one word, mind-body. So that led me to wanting to study Jungian psychology because at the time I was reading the work of Marion Woodman and I realized that she understood so much about food addiction, addiction to perfection, that all of my body patterns, which probably preceded my dance training, but I started training in dance at 3 years old. So my body was completely conditioned to restriction and rigidity. And the more I learned to study dance, the more my breathing got constricted. And that destroyed me because dance was always about love and joy and movement and expression. And I'd gotten so concerned about being perfect and doing it right that I'd lost why I got involved in dance in the first place as a child. So body dialogues grew out of this investigation that really started with pain because I had 3 herniated discs in my neck. And most people say to me, who look at my x-rays, they say, why are you in pain? And the reason I'm not in pain is because I practice my work. One of the most important pieces I recognized was there are these tension areas in the body, and it started with my head, neck, jaw, because Alexander technique is all about learning how to release the neck to create length in the spine. And I could do that imaginally with my thought, which is what he teaches, how to direct your energy, but it wasn't taking care of all that restriction. So the only way to work more subtly really was from the breath. And the reason why that is true is because once you understand the physiology of breathing, then you can understand what's the internal landscape. What are the emotional patterns? What are the psychological patterns that's creating the rigidity?
I had been struggling with chronic pain for years. Growing up as a child, I had chronic illness, and then as an adult, I had a back injury that eventually led me to have a spinal fusion. Multifacetedness of Janice's work has just transformed my life on so many levels. Not just I have less pain, I'm more expansive, I can use my body in ways that I couldn't before, but really it changed the way that I talk to my body and listen to my body, and it changed the whole narrative that I tell myself about wellness and illness and my body's ability to help do some of its own healing. I grew up with a lot of messages saying that I couldn't do things, it wasn't safe for me to do things.
And today, in my practice, after working privately with people since 1979, I find one overriding conversation that goes on between me and my clients. And that is that as soon as I put my hand on someone and I can start feeling their breathing patterns and their tension patterns and their holding patterns, I can hear them talking to themselves. And when they're talking to themselves, they're actually talking to themselves the way they were talked to as children. I start seeing behavioral patterns that are masking for emotional patterns, but that are showing up as physical patterns. And I started seeing that very early on. But it's only now, after doing this practice for so many years, and also teaching classes, and also interviewing clients, that I've started to understand that the way you are treated as a child is mimicked by the way you talk to yourself, and the way your body then expresses itself.
These messages ingrained in my mind, where did they come from, and how did I develop these habits inside of my body so that I could better understand them and release them and give myself that forgiveness and permission that really allowed me to get then down to the physical level. It was like the emotional work was this layer that had to be peeled back for me to really get the benefits of getting connected and strong in my body again.
I've called this talk, Is Your Body Your Best Friend? Or I could have called it, Your Body is Your Best Friend. Because what I'm suggesting is that we actually have a relationship with our bodies every minute of every day. And we have a choice. Do we want to be best friends and nurture and care and listen and have compassion? Or do we want to subdue it? The body talks to us, but not necessarily in words and phrases and language. The body talks to us often in pain. And by the time we get that message, we've actually been given a lot of other messages beforehand that we didn't pay attention to. Every symptom has a story. And for some people, the story goes so far back and it's so chronic that they're layering, right? So it started with maybe gut tension, which maybe was the first layer. And then it showed up as not being able to breathe. And then it showed up with a herniated disc. And then it showed up with TMJ. So if you go to the dentist for the TMJ, they don't know that it actually started 20 years ago when you actually couldn't stomach what was being said in your family's house, or your mother's rage was going right into your gut. When you unwind the story and the imagery, then you can break the pattern. But if you don't unwind the imagery and the story, you keep repeating the pattern.
Once I can listen to my body, I can find out where those are coming from. And the breath helps move those restrictions out and release the pain, release those old habits. And I feel like my body and I are a team again, that we can trust each other.
I think the reason why this work is so necessary right now is we have to be courageous to face what's going on right now. We can't deny it. We can't pretend everything is great. I mean, yes, we want to have gratitude for what's going well, but we can't not acknowledge that so much degradation is happening, not only in our planet, but in our human species and in our relationships. And if we don't recognize what's going on and we don't start grieving collectively and dealing with the emotions collectively, we will just continue to polarize until there is no repair. We can choose on behalf of our well-being. And I want to suggest that this is a time more than ever before that the culture is pushing us out of this relationship, and I want to invite you back in. So welcome home, everyone, to your bodies. The practice is really listening to the body, hearing the dialogue, but then the actual physical practice is working with breath. And then breath takes us into movement, and then movement takes us into more freedom and expansion.